Don, you guys didn't make a roster move, so Eric Comrie in net tonight.
Comrie in net. We had hoped to have UPL in net tonight. He fell ill, unfortunately. So we have three goalies, obviously, and Comrie gets the start as a result. The plan originally was UPL. I think I mentioned that even this morning.
Update on Henry
Henry will be in.
Okay.
So we add him. We'll also add Hinostroza. We'll add Asplund. We will have that. We'll push out Peterka and Quinn, who have been not playing as well as they're capable of lately, and we think that'll help them take a step back, take a breather. Obviously, we have two guys that have been out for some duration with Aspie and Vinny that we feel this is a good opportunity to get them in there and give the other two a little bit of a rest. So that's the plan tonight.
Now, which D is going to come out?
Bryson will come out.
What was the breakdown of the choice between who comes out on defense? What makes the decision?
Yeah, I guess. Lots of different things, Joe. Clegg, we've been happy with. We feel he can continue to progress. He's adding things to his game day by day as he gets more familiar, and we think that's an opportunity for him to continue to grow. But it's a tough decision. It's a close decision anyway. So, but lots of different variables go into it, thoughts go into it. That was probably the purveying one when you think of Clegg being in. It's the first time he would have bumped somebody, or somebody like Bryson would have been bumped out with him in, because he's been in basically to fill in for injuries. Now as we're getting healthier, he stays in, but first time Bryson is out as a result.
Is part of your decision up front with Hinostroza and Asplund also because they haven't played in a while and you'd like to get them in a game?
Definitely. The challenge is they probably deserve, and they did deserve to play sooner. But when you're winning and when you're having a rotation like we had earlier in the year, it creates more than it can sidetrack you psychologically. It's not easy for those two to be out. But if you start rotating guys now, you got 3, 4, 5, 6 guys worried about being in and out, and that does cause a lot of anxiety for guys, not knowing whether they're in or out every night. So the group that was in could stay focused on the next game and the next game, and it was definitely a challenge for Vinny and Aspie to sit out for quite some time. And I thought today's an opportunity, based on the result the other night, based on what they bring. They're two energy guys, and then the two young guys in Quinn and Peterka have had a lot of hockey. And it's always a benefit to be able to step back, as I've mentioned many times, and we've seen it help guys. So the hope is we'll get those two to the next plateau here, or off this plateau and up to a higher one.
Don, is there a benefit that they can kind of do that together, so they can kind of come out?
Yeah,
because they're outside, they're kind of viewed as like this,
tandem. Yeah, we did talk about that. It actually worked out. It worked out good. The right wing, left wing. We're throwing a right wing and a left wing in with Aspie and Vinny, so it actually aligned very well, that we didn't have to manipulate anything to do it. And they're in it together. These are both young guys that worked their way up and spent time in Rochester together, and we're working with them in a very similar manner. So it is a benefit that I think that they're both out and kind of on the same developmental path and trajectory, and they got a partner in the work.
So how does Stevie go between those two, or is there going to be a center shuffle times?
Cousins will go right. They'll jump right with Cousins. The Jost, Middlestead, and Olesen line, I thought, was probably, if we had a best line, it's all relative from last night, but they work. I think they're developing. There's lots of communication between them on the bench and obviously in practice. So I want to make sure we disrupt as little as possible, at least for the start, to see how things are. Based on last night, I don't want to overreact from last night. It was an awful game for us, and we'll see how we respond tonight. And again, I wanted to disrupt as little as possible.
What's the challenge?
For the better part of a year, I mean, just what kind of decisions are just to have to, it's risky obviously to put a 25-year-old right-handed defenseman on waivers. Just how difficult is that, I guess?
It's anytime you put a guy in waivers, it's difficult. You have the 23-man roster, and you definitely know you're going to need more than 23 players through a season. So that is a very challenging component to I think all of us putting rosters together. And personally for me, Casey, we've been together a long time, so yeah, it's not a fun thing to put a guy in waivers.
It might be quite a different game tonight based on how they are, but what's the challenge? You haven't had any success against them, really. They've got like 10 guys, 20 points.
We've had no success against them. So, and they're hot. They're playing well. They're playing with confidence. Even in the pregame, the morning meeting we had, the pregame meeting we just had, you combine that with last night. We got away from our games big time last night. We have to have, we're 0-3 against them. You don't play them much. Obviously, we only played them twice last year, once this year, and they've had our number in those 3 games. So, but tonight, I don't want to factor that in. I don't think that's a need to factor that in. Based on last night, we have to get to our game, and we also have to have faith and confidence in our game that we play our game, we're going to get certain results we want. Now that doesn't mean we don't have some specific strategy against an opponent, the tonight being Seattle, because you've got to play. We talk a lot about play the game that needs to be played first, and so there's certain things that you respect from your opponent tonight. They're different things in Seattle than maybe another team, but you've got to respect those. But at some point, most of it is trying to get to what you do, to get to your game, and we didn't get to our game at any point last year. So, and it starts with working, and that was the message for us today. I think our guys, they're good about looking in the mirror. I know they did last night, and we'll see what we have to go with in a little bit here.
Against them, does it have to be a little simpler because they are so good at making opponents turn the puck over? And I think to those 3 games, and you guys did turn the puck over a lot in those 3 games, do you have to maybe be a little simpler?
It absolutely. So any time you have a team that's, they're scoring 5-on-5 quite a bit, and so goals are scored on mistakes. So you want to play simple, direct, and hard, and minimize mistakes. And not often does a team impose their will on another team. Again, it's mistakes. It's mistakes being made. It's not, super skill beating players. It's skill taking advantage of mistakes. As opposed to imposing your will on them, so on another team. So yes, they're very structured and very consistent in their structure, to the point of some predictability. And they're one heck of a hockey team. They've gotten better since the start of last year. They're growing. They were much like we talked about. They were a franchise with absolutely zero identity. They didn't exist, and you bring in a collection of players. I think what's happening is through the process is you're seeing the identity they have, and it's a hardworking, very straightforward team, very capable.
What's your sense of where Eric Comrie's at mentally? It's been a long time between games for him.
Yeah, that's a challenge to have that time. That's why Rochester was such a benefit for him. But we'll see. My sense, Coms is. He's a worker. He works hard. He takes a lot of pride. He cares. So that's great. Obviously, those are great qualities. That also is those are also qualities you put pressure on. He puts a lot of pressure on himself, and you have to deal with that day to day. But his teammates, I know, are very happy to see him. He's like I mentioned, he's a worker, and you got to respect him for that. So we'll see tonight. He wasn't planning on jumping in tonight, so is that a good thing or bad thing? We don't know, but I think my confidence in him is he'll be ready to play.
Is there any thought given to sending Quinter Pacheco down to Rochester since they don't have to clear waivers?
Yeah, no thought. You're right. They don't have to clear waivers. We could do that. If you give it thought, I think it would be a disruption there. We like where they're at. We think this is natural. We think that that the best spot for them to develop right now is here. I like the way this level pushes them. I like the way this level challenges them. We know they were prolific down there last year, even as a year younger. So you could question how much of a challenge is that for them. And this challenge that they're going through stimulates that growth that we need. And there's no better stimulus than that. The challenge at the NHL, they can do it, and it's just a matter of collecting themselves and staying focused. And but yeah, they're growing here, and that's exciting for us.
But you could do the same thing, like as Kevin said, and I think you've said too. The roster is going to be a daily thing. I mean, you could do the same thing you did with Lukin and send him down for a day, couldn't you, if you had to?
We can, and there is that is not without some disruption. They're you can only imagine, right? You're pulling a guy in and you're telling him, hey, we're going to send you down, but we're not going to send you down. You're going to be recalled right away, and so we don't want to disrupt those two. They're I should say we want to minimize disruption. Obviously there's a lot that could disrupt players, and this is a lot of intricacies to anything, and specifically here with putting a roster together, but the more you can minimize it, the better, and that's how we feel every time we have to make a decision. That doesn't mean that things can't happen, but where we were today, obviously the decision was based. Any decision we make is based on trying to little disruption, but we're. The question was, did we think of it? Well, you think of all things, but I can tell you that was super quick no, because again, we feel they're doing very well here, and I look forward to them getting back in the lineup because I know things like this are great. At their age, to stand back for a game or two is very healthy and part of progress as long as they believe we believe in them, and we certainly do.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.